Welcome to Guide to IELTS. In this video, we'll write an essay in response to this IELTS Writing Task 2 question. Some feel that the effects of advertising are positive for individuals and businesses, while others think they are negative. Discuss both views and give your own opinion. The first step is to understand the question. Now, this particular question does ask for positives and negatives of advertising, but it asks for its impact on individuals and businesses. Had this question been, some feel that the effects of advertising are positive while others think they are negative, discuss both views and give your opinion, it would have been easier because that would just have asked for pros and cons of advertising. What we'll do is we'll make points about the positives and negatives of advertising in general first and try to figure out how we'll need to tweak those points to fit the question that we have about individuals and businesses. So let's write about the positives of advertising first. Well, advertising tells us what is available in the market. It creates demands for products, so it's good for economy. It's important for free market economies. Second point, it encourages buying of existing products and launch of new products. As a result of this only, there's an increase in sales. It's good for economy in general of any country. Now, the next 3 points are less about the purpose of advertising, but more about the other positives of it. 1, it's a thriving creative industry. It creates employment. Next, it's entertaining and at times it's even informative. For example, we had lots of ads during COVID period about the guidelines, about vaccination. We have advertisements about importance of hygiene. And lastly, advertising is a form of art. So any positives that work for art work for advertising also. Now let's write about the negatives of advertising. 1, very often advertising has misleading or wrong information. They exaggerate the features of products. The nutritional content of food items is either incorrectly told or not informed at all. So that is one negative. The next point is that advertising encourages consumerism and consumer culture because as a result of advertising, people usually buy things they don't need. An add-on to this point is that advertising with misleading information, with glamorizing the products, manipulates people. Another point, because advertising uses glamorous celebrities, it sets unrealistic expectation and goals for everyone, especially true for youngsters. An example of this is like if there's a beauty product or if there's a hair care product, the kind of results that are shown in advertising are usually practically not possible. But youngsters then aim for that kind of a look. The next point is about children. Advertising is especially harmful for children because they have impressionable minds, they are young, they don't understand the difference between the reality and what is made up, the advertisements. For example, unhealthy food items, buying toys they don't need. Lastly, there's this point about products that are addictive. So advertisements of those products have always been a controversial point. Should they be advertised? If they are advertised, the negative impact that they have, especially on youngsters. Another point, which actually has both positives and negatives, is that advertising focuses on selling brand image. Now, this is certainly good for the brands, but it is bad for individuals because once the brand name is established, the customers end up having to shell out more for the same product and the company makes handsome profits. Now we'll look at these points from the point of view of the question that we have about the positive and negative impact of advertising on individuals and companies. Let's look at the points we had about pros and cons of ads and figure out which ones relate to individuals and which ones relate to companies. The individuals in this case are the consumers of the products and the services that are advertised. The first point that we had in positives of advertising is about awareness of what is available in the market. So the customers get to know about the choices that are available and the company is able to inform the customers about what is available. So this point is certainly good for both the companies and the customers. The second point that we had about encouraging buying of existing products and launching of new products is good for the companies. The third point and the fourth point, the third being about increase of sale being good for the economy and the fourth being about it being a thriving creative industry leading to employment, do not really fit into our essay. The employment point can if we write about the general public getting employment, but I choose not to put this point in this essay because it's too vaguely connected to the topic. The fifth point that we had about advertisements being entertaining and informative can be good for individuals because individuals get entertained and they also get information if the ads are informative. Last point about a form of art, again not relevant to this essay. Now we move to negatives of advertising. The first one about misleading or wrong info or exaggeration of features, it's bad for individuals, that is bad for the consumers. The second one is again bad for the consumers because the customers are enticed to buy products they don't need. It leads to increase in consumer culture, all of which is bad for lifestyle of individuals. Next point about manipulation, again bad for consumers. Use of celebrities, unrealistic expectations, bad for consumers or bad for individuals. And even the harmful impact on children, about advertisement of addictive products, these are all bad for the individuals, the consumers. So once we arrange these points in proper order according to this particular essay, this is what our planning would look like. Clearly, all the negatives that we have are for the consumers, the individuals. A couple of positives are for the individuals and a couple of positives are for the companies. The last point that we have about brand image, it's good for the company, bad for the individual. It could be good for the individual too, because then they can depend on that brand to give them a certain quality of service or a certain quality of the product that they are buying. But if the price gets too high because of the brand image getting established, that's a negative for the individual and a positive for the company. So basically, even though you may have written essays on a topic similar to the essay that you get, make sure you understand exactly what the question is asking and tailor your essay such that it answers the question asked. Typically, the format we follow when answering discuss both views and give your opinion questions is first, the intro, which includes some kind of a general statement followed by paraphrasing of the question. Then we write points supporting one point of view, followed by points supporting the other point of view, and finally the conclusion. However, in this question, we need to justify whether advertising is good for individuals or bad for individuals, and whether advertising is good for companies or bad for companies, which means we need to tweak the format accordingly. Now, using the points that we have, the planning that we have already done, let's start writing the sample essay. The beginning is a general statement about advertisements, followed by the fact that they are opposing views. So, first statement, with the huge variety of products and services available, advertisements have become a norm in today's day and age. However, there are opposing views on the impact of advertising campaigns on the advertiser and the consumer. Notice the little changes that we have made. Instead of advertisements, we have used advertising campaigns. Instead of individuals and companies, we have used consumer and advertiser. So, from our planning, it is obvious that for companies, we have only positives. So, what we'll do is we'll write about the positive of the company first. Then we'll write the positives for the customers or the individuals, followed by the negatives for the customers. The second paragraph about positives for company. As far as manufacturers and sellers are concerned, publicity of their products and services is a boon. Adverts help in spreading the word to potential customers. This in turn boosts the sales, helping the firms increase their profits. Next paragraph. Similarly, the customer also benefits from the adverts because they become aware of the choices available. That was our first positive point. Second positive point, moreover, since the advertisers put in the effort to make their advertisements noteworthy, the advertisements are also often entertaining to watch, which is an additional boon for the individuals who watch these advertisements. We'll start the next paragraph now, where we'll write about the negatives of advertisements from the point of view of individuals. On the other hand, possible adverse impact of promotional activities on the consumers cannot be ignored. That was the topic sentence. Now, the first point. Firstly, advertisements usually carry wrong or misleading information. Exaggeration of features of a smartphone and health benefits of food items are two examples of the same. Typically, we start writing our examples with for example, for instance, but this is another way of doing the same. Now, this leads to customers getting manipulated to buy products. So, therefore, customers are manipulated into buying such products. The next point. Secondly, advertisements entice people to purchase things they do not need. The result of this constant enticement is skyrocketing of consumer culture, which is a truth of today's times. Third point. Thirdly, the unrealistic goals of beauty and lifestyle put forward through the glamorous celebrities who endorse various products may leave youngsters with insecurities for life. Last point. Lastly, adverts are especially a bane for young children as their impressionable minds are unable to differentiate between a cartoon show they may be watching and an advertisement during commercial breaks. Finally, the conclusion, where we'll clearly answer the question about the impact of advertisements on companies and on individuals. To conclude, it is obvious that businesses are certainly positively impacted by the advertisements. In contrast, the consumers sometimes find themselves at the short end of the stick in this case because advertisements impact consumers both positively and negatively. We could end our essay here, or we could write one more sentence about ethical advertisements. However, ethical advertising by conscientious advertisers can ensure an overall beneficial effect for both the businesses who advertise and the individuals at whom the advertisements are aimed. Here's the complete essay with some important phrases and connectors highlighted. Now we list out some of the synonyms that we have used in the essay. For advertisements, we have used advertising, adverts. We've also used advertising campaign. And then we find roundabout ways of saying the same thing if we don't have perfect synonyms. So instead of advertisements, we have written publicity of the product, promotional activity. For companies, the other words that we have used is businesses, advertiser, manufacturer and seller, firms. So obviously, advertiser is not a word that can replace companies in any other context. But here, because companies are the ones who are advertising, we can use this word. For individual, in context of this essay, we have used consumer, customer. We can also use general public. For positive impact, we have used boon, benefit, beneficial. For adverse impact, we have used negative, bane. We've also used an idiom in the last paragraph, short end of the stick, which means to suffer bad effects of a situation. And there's one big word we've used, which is conscientious, which means a person wishing to do one's work positively, seriously, with the right and wrong in mind. That's it for now from Guide to IELTS. All the very best.